Last time, Chaos and Skaven had the big battle, and Chaos had lost their armies and their means to push into their south. With that, Throt is able to push back into the Chaos Wastes, which due to climates and the terrain is not a very profitable idea. The real war, however, was far from over. With the inevitable clash in the west between Bretonnia and Skaven, it was only a matter of time before they had stretched too thin. Not to mention Chaos Dwarfs having captured the World's Edge Mountains, Skaven were wide open for a four-way war with 3 players and possibly a 4th one from the south. So, while the Skaven look the strongest in terms of land, politically they are in a very precarious position. In the other parts of the world, we see the first early PvP fights. In the south, vampires and high elves are doing a lot of grandstanding against each other. A war is brewing in the south, but nothing much has changed in either of the factions' borders thus far. This ends up slowing down both sides as they try to get the upper hand. The war in the north continues, but now in a new front. Archeon himself comes down with an army full of chosen and quickly enters Norsca in position to attack the Skaven strongholds there. Now that the Throt has reached the borders of Chaos Wastes, he knows that not only is he opening himself up to Ostrogoth's attack, but also will lose tempo against Archeon, who can move in Norsca unimpeded with 2 Dark Fortresses exchange on both sides. Skaven and Chaos sign a ceasefire, as Skaven know that the Bretonnia and Chaos Dwarfs are positioning to invade the undefended Skaven settlements in the Empire. Ostankia was not having a particularly good time with Morathi being in their way of the expansion. Through lots of micro and some finagling, Ostankia and her friends managed to defeat one of the major armies Morathi had, and Bretonnia is preparing for war and is not even hiding it. With most of their troops encroaching on Empire territories which are held by Skaven, the clash is inevitable, but Bretonnia knows that alone they would not stand a chance. It looks like the Bretonnia will be relying on the divided attention of the Skaven economy to win this war, but also some diplomacy that was being done in the background. So, while there was not much happening in the session itself, there were a lot of alliances and machinations happening in the background. While all of that was happening, the Skaven had started to notice that Chaos was encroaching on Cathay territory with their confederation of Clan Eshin, and the forces that were there were not to be taken lightly. So the terms of the ceasefire were still being discussed in regards to the Cathay lands, and some basic agreement was reached. The ceasefire as it stood now was looking pretty weak, since Chaos had everything to gain from breaking it in only 2 turns, while Skaven would only gain territories they could not benefit from. So, the plan was set. Chaos, Bretonnia, Chaos Dwarves were secretly in a coalition, and the plan was that all 3 would hit Skaven just as the main Skaven armies were in transit, forcing them to choose to play a cat-and-mouse game while they lost territory in all the other fronts, with potentially high elves joining the fray as well. The Hidden Confederation was ready to strike, but nothing ever goes according to plan. In the next episode, we will see a massive shift in politics and see if this great confederation works out. One thing is certain, the world is responding to the rapidly growing Skaven threat, and just when he was needed the most, the Skaven player had disappeared. In his stead, a new challenger, one that knew the political situation of the Skaven, took their place. But that, friends, is a story for our next episode.